What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Hot Toys Marvel 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. And today we are talking about a very special Iron Man figure, and I figured it was only right to talk some Iron Man figures, and we're heading towards Avengers Doomsday. We're into March now, so we're what, 9 months out till Avengers Doomsday. I cannot wait for this film. I can't wait to find out more about it, see a trailer. But one of my favorite Iron Man suits, not necessarily in the film, but in person, this suit does look really cool. And this is the Mark 50 Avengers Endgame, or actually Avengers Infinity War suit. Technically, I guess, the Mark 50 and the Mark 85, there really isn't all that much changes, but still, there has to be some changes there because we're 35 marks removed from Avengers Infinity War to Endgame, you know, so how many suits did Tony make that he never wore? You know, like 35? Jesus Christ, 34 if you don't include the 85? But not a whole lot going on in this box. Big Avengers logo A on the front. The Mark 50 suit. It is a die-cast suit as well. This is MMS 473 D23. I don't know what that means. Maybe this is Deluxe 23. Legal information around the back, store locations, nothing too crazy going on. So let's slip off the cover of this. So this still comes like most die-cast figures come, where it comes as two boxes that slide in half and then this foam tray in the middle here. But you can see like a black and white outlined version of the Mark 50 there. It says Infinity War down bottom. Nothing too much going on. The cast and crew that made the figure on the back of the box. Yeah, nothing too crazy going on here. So let's take this off. Pull this foam tray up out of here. Alright, the Mark 50, Mark L. Right on top there, taking off the top of this. Plastic off the top. Pulling the figure out of the box for the first time. Oof, does feel slightly lighter than I was expecting, but still a very nice looking figure. Of course, there's foam all over the place, so I'm gonna have to get all this out of here. But just to look at the helmet and the mask, and yeah, everything looks pretty damn good. Pretty sleek looking suit, but there's light up effects all over the place, so I'm sure there's batteries somewhere, and there's a shit ton of them, so I'm gonna have to get all those into this figure as well. Mark 50, baby. Yeah, I don't know, I have a bunch of Iron Man now at this point, but every time you open an Iron Man suit, it's just so cool. You're like, God damn, Tony. You know, and I can't help but think, what would it be like to wear one of these in real life, you know? Like, I really desperately want to. One day, maybe. Ooh, it also comes with a pretty crispy Tony Stark head sculpt. Nice looking beard. No rolling eye effects, I don't think. Nope, no, this is pretty normal head sculpt. I feel like he looked different in Infinity War, but maybe not. But I was also watching this just the other night, and technically this Mark 50 here, I think is the same suit as the very beginning of the movie. He like pulls the drawstrings on his like little tracksuit he's wearing, and the tracksuit like vacuum seals to his body, and then he touches his chest, and the nanotech comes out of the chest, and the Mark 50 forms around him. So technically this is that same suit as the very beginning of the movie, I believe, you know, and this is a suit that's all stored in that little housing that's on his chest in that movie. So that's kind of cool. But what else does this bad boy come with? Just pulling out the bottom tray here. Avengers Infinity War Mark 50 right there. And then we have a whole bunch of batteries. We got some cannons that go on his arm. Oh, it looks like he's got that back panel that goes on the back of the suit so that Thor can charge him up so that he can blast Thanos, you know what I mean? Just a normal traditional flight pole and a traditional hexagon base with the Avengers logo in the middle, Infinity War. Nothing too crazy for the stock figure, but I do have the accessories box that also comes with this figure, so why don't we bust that open as well? Also, in case I forget to mention it, read your instructions. You don't want to mess up your figures, so at the very least do some due diligence and read the instructions they sent you. But like I was saying, I do have the accessories kit for this Iron Man, and Iron Man Mark 50 accessories, ACESSORIES 004. So this is only the fourth accessible accessory set that they've released for Hot Toys and Sideshow, and it does say Sideshow exclusive. But this is a pretty decent sized box. So, you know, it's not too thick, but it's a good sized box. So let's buzz this open and see what extra accessories he comes with. All right, everybody, we have all of the Iron Man Mark V accessories laid out on the desk in front of me here, and you can see kind of the split right at that sword, where this is all the stuff that comes with the regular figure, and everything to the right is everything that comes with the special accessories set that comes for this figure. And we're going to talk about if that set is actually worth the money, or if the original accessories would do for this figure. There is some cool stuff over here on the right, and we'll get into it, but just to start off on the left side, as you can see, it does come with a waist grabber and a flight pole, so you can do some Iron Man flying poses, but might dig into the suit, might damage the suit, and the base isn't that heavy, so maybe be careful when trying to use that flight pole for die-cast figures. And then we have this accessory that goes on to his back, and I think these are like extra propulsors that he uses to like fly towards Thanos, and this just slots in on his back with those 4 pegs right there. I haven't tried it yet, but we will show what this looks like on the figure. Then he comes with 2 guns. I believe this is the blaster, and it does have like a light up effect when you plug in the arm. It does shine through, so you can light up this blaster. And it also comes with another effect that slots on top of the gauntlet instead of like onto the arm. This slots right on top, and that just looks like a blaster cannon type of thing. I don't know if we ever actually see this in the film though. And then of course he comes with 2 propulsor hands, like he's flying with the curved wrist gauntlet, you know, like that metal piece on top there, so that he can get his hands flat out to the side, but the armor doesn't look weird on top. And you can see the other hands, how like that panel was curved on top, and they're just straight hard plastic panels on top. Now there is little nicks and stuff like that, but that, don't worry, that's not battle damaged on your clean Mark 50. That's just little surface details that make the suit come alive and feel real. But they do also come with some fully articulated hands, so you could have him grabbing something or making a fist or flipping you off or giving a peace sign. You know, you can get creative, whatever you want Tony Stark to be doing, you know, maybe rocking on or something, I don't know. But always like that they at least include these for die-cast figures. Now we'll talk more about that Tony Stark head sculpt in the figure, in the base that he's standing on, more in a moment. But just to talk about the extra accessories that come in the accessory set. Now some things like the shield, you know, maybe if this was die-cast, this would be really nice. But, you know, it's kind of plasticky, but it still kind of looks good. And it has this little spring-loaded part to be able to slide the hand in there. And yeah, not bad, but not great either. It's better than the all blue plastic one that a different Iron Man figure came with. I think maybe the Mark 85, but at least this feels like an actual shield that Iron Man might use. And then of course he comes with 2 types of swords. One slots onto his arm, and you know, I think that blue blade will light up, and yeah, it just looks like a giant old sword that he has. And then he has like a hand that comes to be able to grab said sword here, and I believe this is how it goes with the long part up top. And yeah, he slices and dices. I don't know if we ever actually see him using these things, you know, for if in effect, you know, like I think he swings these at Thanos, but it doesn't really do a whole lot to him, you know what I mean? So then Thanos just kind of breaks these off, and then he's bound to just using his blasters and stuff again. But nice accessories, those should look good in a pose. So like I was saying, there is 2 grabbing hands for probably that sword like I showed in the last little section. But yeah, almost fist hands, but I believe these, you know, soft-ish enough that you should be able to pry, you know, these open to be able to get stuff in there if you so wanted to be able to hold stuff with your Iron Man figure, you know, and these would probably be more sturdy than the fully articulated hands, you know what I mean? There's also this blaster that goes onto one side, and if that lit up when you plug that on the figure, I think it would look good, but I don't necessarily
remember him using anything like this in the film. So maybe this is a useless accessory to me because I don't necessarily like the way it looks and I can't see myself posing the figure with this long term. Maybe I'll try it out on him, but maybe not. Now, eventually, when I get a Thanos, this should go on to the Thanos gauntlet. And this is like what makes it so, you know, he's trying to snap. And this is like a piece that Tony Stark puts on the gauntlet to be, you know, make it so it's like prying his hand open so that he can't close it to be able to get that snap. Now that's cool, and I wish I could try it out, but unfortunately, out of all the figures in my collection, I do not have a Thanos at the moment, but I am in the works of trying to find a Thanos. I kind of want to get Infinity War Thanos, but also I kind of want Armored Thanos, which is a clean version and a battle damage version. But knowing me, I'm going to end up getting all three of those. But for the time being, I won't be able to try this out, but I heard it is maybe magneted right to the gauntlet, so this is an accessory that I do want to try out in the future when I do end up getting a Thanos. Now this piece, I haven't seen anybody try because they said like the legs are too close together in trying to get them, you know, in this thing, whatever this is. I think this is like a booster jet to give him more power so that he can, you know, catch up to the spaceship that's taking off in Infinity War. But I don't know if this lights up either. You know, maybe it does with the plugins for like the legs. And if that lit up, that would be a cool thing to use. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to because, you know, I don't think the legs go that close together. And I definitely don't want to break my suit. But I might try it anyways and just say screw it because this does look cool. And does that look like a butt right there? I don't know, just me maybe? But yeah, so maybe I'll try that out. Big chunky thing, not die cast though, so it's not too heavy. You know, so it shouldn't cause any damage to the feet or anything like that. And then you can see back here, 2 of those feet element things. So 2 more things that go on his feet. And those like clamp down into the ground so that he can get a more sturdy stance. And then I believe he uses these. So he kind of cements himself to the ground. And then he punches Thanos with like these double jackhammer powered punchers. And like this is cool, but also maybe not a way I want to display my Iron Man figure long term. But something 100% I will be using is this battle damaged mask. You know, I think it could even be more battle damaged, but the suit's mask as it comes on the figure is very clean. So having a little extra battle damage right there, I think will work out great and it looks good. And yeah. Nothing too crazy going on with that, but still, battle damage mask, very cool. But maybe the other coolest accessory from this set, and maybe the reason other than that battle damage mask that I actually bought this set, is for this blade right here. And this blade is nice because it has that little spot on the back there where you can slot in a hand, you know, so you can have Tony Stark wearing this as if, you know, he is going to stab Thanos. But there's also that scene in the movie where Thanos rips this off of Tony's arm, and there comes this little piece here that you can slot in and kind of slots in nicely, you know, and there still is that line there, but still slots in pretty nice. And you can have it so Thanos rips off the sword and ends up stabbing Tony with it, and you can see like the broken nanotech effect, like this was just a part of a nanotech suit and it got broken off, which I find really cool. And then, you know, if you don't want to use this, you can just pop this off and put the hand back on. But even if I don't end up using this in a Thanos pose, I might end up using this like just down by the base as like set decoration. But still a really cool sword. But is this, you know, what justifies spending a couple $100 on that accessory set when you're already spending all that money on the figure? I don't know. I feel like it could have come with something a little bit more, you know, valuable and maybe exclusive to that accessory set to make that worth your money. But I don't know. Get it if you want. Me personally, I'm glad I have the accessories, but I feel like most of these I'm not going to end up using, you know, especially in the long term. And yeah, the last thing we have to check out is that figure himself and that Tony Stark head sculpt.
Oh, right. So the last little accessory here is a little rubber gasket that goes like this just to cover up the front of Tony's neck when this head sculpt is on the figure. But the head sculpt itself, I wish it had rolling eyes, maybe would bring this head sculpt to life. But I think it does nail the Robert Downey Jr. expression, the facial hair, the hair on top of his head, you know, like the swooping, flowing, cool guy hair, if you would. And yeah, you know, I don't see any angle of this that doesn't look like RDJ, but it also looks like, you know, a stone statue. You know, like it doesn't look like it has all that much life in this head sculpt. You know what I mean? So maybe not something I'll use in the long term, but hopefully I could try this head sculpt out on another figure in my collection, and maybe I can use the head sculpt for that figure, because I think it's my Mark 46, I believe, or maybe 43, whatever one is from Civil War, and that suit didn't come with a Tony Stark head sculpt, so maybe I'll toss this bad boy on there and, you know, have another Tony Stark head sculpt in my collection. Because I believe at the current moment, the only ones that are actually Tony Stark are, I believe, this same similar head sculpt from the Mark IV gantry. I have the mech test version Tony Stark, which is a different head sculpt entirely. And then I have the Mark 85 head sculpt, which is an updated head sculpt from this one, from Infinity War to Endgame. But yeah, very, very nice head sculpt, and really the expression maybe could be something a little bit more, but I do like the stoic poses, so this is a pretty good head sculpt, and the only thing that could really make it better for what it is rolling eyeballs. Just, I think the rolling eyeball feature brings the figures to life in a way that you just can't explain. But yeah, not a bad looking head sculpt, so maybe I'll try that out on the figure and see how that looks. And just the last thing here, the Avengers Infinity War base Iron Man on the front. It maybe could say Iron Man Mark 50, but that's all right. Just Iron Man, Avengers Infinity War. You can see like the cosmic space in the background there, the Avengers A, and yeah, just interesting color. I wonder what that's really supposed to be back there. Maybe that's like Vormir or something, or just space in general. I don't know. Maybe Titan. But yeah, nothing too much going on there. I do wish it came with a regular crotch grabber, but a die cast figure with the flight pole, maybe this base should have some more weight to it to be able to counterbalance this figure when it's up in the air. But we'll try our best to see what he looks like in some flight poses and just posing on top of this base in a moment. But just now, to take a closer look at this figure up close and personal, I think it looks really sleek, really like, you know, slim and smooth, and you know, it doesn't look like as chunky and clunky as previous versions of the suit, you know, and like some may say that's a good thing, some may say that's a bad thing, you know. Like me personally, my favorite Iron Man suit is probably still like the Mark III from Iron Man 1, but you know, something about this suit too, seeing it in person, I made me like it a lot more. But the nanotech suit in the movies, I never necessarily liked. You know, anything after like maybe Civil War, I never liked the Iron Man suit just because of the way it looked on screen. Like, it looked like it was completely CGI. It looked like Robert Downey Jr. wasn't actually ever wearing the suit in person, which he wasn't, you know. Like, at a certain point, he just became a prima donna and was like, yeah, I don't want to get into that big heavy metal suit. You guys can CGI it later, and I'll just put the chest reactor on, and you guys do everything else later, which, you know, they can do, but it makes it look all that much better, and it holds up. Like, you know, you can watch 2008's Iron Man, and some of those, you know, effects in that movie hold up incredibly well even today, and they'll stand the test of time because of how good it looks. And some of the stuff done practically, some of it's CGI, but when you have both of them there, you're able to really match and make the suit look that much better. And like, I don't think the Iron Man suit has ever sounded better than it did in Iron Man 1, you know what I mean, with all the you know, like it was just such a like a mechanical machine that this guy built in his garage type of thing. He built in a cave from a box of scraps.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Like, Tony Stark is that guy, you know what I mean? But very sleek hands, you know, and I love that the little top of the hands there cover up the wrist gap, so, you know, from certain angles you can't even see it. There is things like you could pull the leg down to get more articulation, but I always try to make it so he's sitting as flush as possible when he can. You know, some people hate the way that the legs look, and, you know, I would like those to look more seamless myself as well, but if they were seamless, you wouldn't be able to move the legs at all. So, you know, at least you're able to have some mobility, but this does look pretty unsightly. You know, I wish there was a way for them to fix this. But down by the boots, nothing too crazy going on there. A little gappy back by the knee joints there and out back here. But like I said, for articulation, they kind of need those joints, you know what I mean, to be able to bend the knee as far as you can, you know, like even a little bit past 90, like that's nice. A little toe articulation, a little ankle tilt, you know, so yeah, beggars can't be choosers. At a certain point, you're like, I wish it was seamless, but also at a certain point, you're like, well, I want to be able to move them around. I don't want them just to be this statue, or I would have just ordered a statue, you know what I mean? But these 6-scale figures are really, really so impressive every time I get them in hand here. And yeah, I can't wait to now pop in the light up effects. I think there's a shit ton of them. One in the head, one for the chest, it's in the back. I think there might be shoulder ones for like lights right here. Of course, there's arm ones that have to be up in here somewhere because you can take the arms off, so the arms aren't going to have the batteries in them. And then there's got to be one like probably in the thigh panel back here somewhere. But yeah, so I think that's what I'll do next. I'll toss all the batteries in this bad boy so we can see what he looks like all lit up. And then let's toss this bad boy into some poses and see what he is capable of. All right, everybody, we're about to power up this bad boy with the light up effects. And this is exactly why I don't appreciate the button cell batteries, you know, and just the light up effects aren't working the way they should, and it always bugs you, you know, like even if they did work, it still bugs me because then you have to take off all of these panels to turn them back on, and then you have to turn the panels, you know, put the panels back on just to have them lit up. Like, you know, if I wanted to turn this on, I would have to flip this switch, and then you get that one light, you know, and all this effort of taking off this panel, and then you have to put it back on just to have that lit up. Now, it does look better lit up than it does, you know, not lit up, but certain things, you know, 2 leg ones on either side of the legs, these ones not so bad. These arm ones, you know, to turn on the switch, you have to take off a back panel, and that's how you get to the screws, and then you have to take off the inner bicep panel there to get to the switch. Now, you know, the switch does look good with that on, and then, you know, the main chest reactor, you can see all the lights that lights up, and this all looks great. But then why is the batteries that come from my head sculpt not work? You know what I mean? Like, why is this not work? And so now I have a completely lit up figure, except for this arm. Turn this arm on as well. And, you know, now the light ups look really good, except my head is now dim. And the same kind of thing happened for Pepper. And, you know, if you want to know exactly what happened to her, go check out her video. But, like, you know, why have 90% of the batteries working and then have the last one just screwed? And unfortunately, I don't have any extra batteries in my collection at the moment, so I couldn't even go and grab them from another figure. But, like, how bothersome. And it's different battery sizes for the head and for the rest of the body. So, like, I couldn't even use some of the other ones from, like, the legs or something to power up the head. Like, it's just a complete pain in the ass right now that's not lit up. And then little things like right there, that light should be lit up if all these other ones are lit up. But I think the shoulder one that they've had in other figures is even more of a pain in the ass to find, you know, the spot for it. But, like, you're telling me you're putting batteries right up here in this corner and you couldn't light that up? Like, I feel like that's a missed opportunity. And, you know, it looks good, but I don't end up lighting up my figures in the long term anyways. But it's just such a pain in the ass that mask is not lit up now. You know, like, that's one of the best parts of the light up feature. And I have this battle damage mask that I want to put on here, but now I don't even know if I will because it doesn't light up. So I might as well use the Tony Stark head sculpt, which I didn't really want to use in the first place, you know? So now this has changed my plans, you know, and that's why you put the batteries in and you don't make plans after, you know, for the batteries to work until you know that they do, you know? So now I guess I'll change what I was going to do for my poses, and I guess I'll light up just this stuff and leave the head off. But why don't we try this Iron Man Mark 50 in some poses and see what he is capable of? All right, everybody, we have the Iron Man Mark 50 suit spinning around on the turntable for us here, just standing straight up and down just as he comes fresh out of the box. And then I turned his lights on, and he's kind of in that classic Iron Man pose with one arm out in front of him, and the repulsor is, you know, glowing out in front of him like he's about to shoot somebody. But unfortunately, my lights in the helmet don't work. And then I have the Tony Stark head sculpt on the figure with the knife hand and like the nanotech knife that comes out that he uses to stab towards Thanos. But then eventually it gets ripped off by Thanos and gets stabbed himself by his own weapon. I then put the planted feet on him and the two jackhammer hands, and he uses this in the movie to like plant himself in the ground very sturdily and then punch Thanos with a very heavy hand. And I believe it might be this kind of look that draws the first drop of blood off of Thanos. But then I have him using the flight pole, and he's flying towards us with the sword arm on one side, and he has the laser blade on the other side in the other hand, and he's got the extra back repulsors kind of pushing him forward, you know, and those like extra jets behind him. And then I have the battle damaged faceplate that I'm sure looks really good with the helmet lights on, but unfortunately I can't do that. But the faceplate still looks really good, battle damaged. And I have him with one arm cannon and the shield. I tried to put the other hand cannon on the other side, but that didn't work well, so then I just kind of threw the shield on there to complete the look. And there was only a few of the extra accessories I wasn't able to put into poses and get to work on the figure. But then I have him just side by side with Pepper Potts in the Mark 49 suit, just showing off a little bit of how good these suits look next to each other, being the Mark 49 rescue suit and the Mark 50. So Tony made that suit for Pepper right before the events of Infinity War, and he made that nanotech suit for himself. He had to make sure his wife had a suit. But then in his final pose here, I have the battle damaged mask and the knife hand once it's ripped off down on the display base. And then on the right hand, I have that cannon arm that he points towards Drax during the movie. And Drax is like, I can take it. And Doctor Strange is like, no, you cannot take it. But then I have that Tony Stark head sculpt and just the propulsor forward with the rest of the lights still turned on. And I will be turning those off in a moment just because, you know, I want to be able to hold those batteries with as much battery life as possible. But you can see on the front left leg there, the batteries in that leg are already starting to die. So these batteries do not last very long, and they're really junk, and sometimes they don't even work in the first place because I wasn't able to light up the head, which is one of the most important things to be able to light up on the Iron Man suit. Highly unfortunate, but there's also a couple other accessories like this flight booster I tried, and I was able to get the two legs in there. I was kind of worried that it'd be too tight close together. I was able to get them in there, but then once they're in there, it doesn't look proportional, and like it almost like this part should slot above the knee, but instead it slots below the knee, so then it just doesn't look good and it doesn't light up. So like just not a good accessory there that I was able to get any poses with. And then I have this cannon I didn't use either, and that doesn't light up, and if it did, maybe I would have used it. And then this one slots into the arm, and I wasn't able to pry off the arm piece because my fingernails are too short. So I just wasn't able to get this onto the figure, but I also don't necessarily remember him using this in the movie. So comment below if you remember him using this accessory in Infinity War. And then the only other accessory I didn't use is this little Thanos gauntlet device. And I believe this magnets right into the center of the gauntlet, and you can use it to make it look like it's, you know, prying the hand open so he can't snap and end the world, you know what I mean? So this I will eventually use when I get a Thanos figure with an Infinity Gauntlet in my collection, because ironically, at the current moment, I do not have any Infinity Gauntlets. I do have a couple in boxes yet to be unboxed, but I'm not going to pull it out just to use this accessory, you know what I mean? So eventually when I get a Thanos figure, I will toss this accessory on that, and hopefully it works out well. But there's not too much else to do with this Tony Stark in his Iron Man Mark 50 suit, and I have a couple of spots picked out for him and Pepper Potts. So why don't we go toss this bad boy on the shelf and see what he's looking like in his new home. Oh, right, y'all. Another great looking shelf we got over here. Now, what, 12 figures on this shelf with Shang-Chi and them taking up a lot of room with that little rings together accessory, which eventually I might have to take apart just to, you know, save some room so I can fit some more people on here, because there is some room up front, but you can see Pepper Potts and Tony taking up the corners now, and we still got Gladiator Hulk back there. We got some Stan Lees. We got Thor and Loki in the corner. We still have my first statue I ever got with the Daredevil statue back there. So 12 figures and a statue. This might be one of my most packed shelves to date, and I really like the layout of it, but just did this shelf recently as well, so I'm really liking the layout of this. But the DC side of things could really use a different layout, and we will upgrade them eventually as well. And yeah, hopefully be able to fit a lot more figures on this shelf, and also, you know, just maybe the layout a little differently. You know, maybe put the Batman Forever and like the earlier stuff on a different shelf. Maybe have like the DC EU figures all together with like Henry Cavill's Batman and Batfleck, you know what I mean? So yeah, might switch these guys up, but this is what my DC is looking like for the current moment, with a little bit more DC down there and a little bit more DC over here with Peacemaker and Superman and the Joker over there, and also the Batman Armory that got unboxed last week. If you guys missed that unboxing, go check it out. That's a good one. But today we unboxed that Mark 50, and as far as my Iron Men go, this is really the extent of the collection. We got the Mark 1, the Mark 4, the Mark 1, or maybe Mark 1, maybe Mark 2, I don't know. Either way, the War Machine from Iron Man 2, and then you have the, I believe that's 46 from Civil War, the mech test, you know, testing out of the suit, you know, that's almost 1.5, because that's almost Mark II. I believe this is the Mark IV with gantry, so maybe if this is Mark IV, maybe this is Mark VI. I could be mistaken, though. And then, yeah, now I got Mark 50. And other than that, for Mark 50, I have 85 over here in the classic Iron Man pose. And I do like the battle damaged 85 a lot more than the 50, but that's just because the details on this thing, the Infinity Stone light up hand, the bloody and beat up Tony Stark head sculpt, and the updated hair and just the updated mold, you know, like that just is an insane figure. But the 50 I was highly impressed by, and the head sculpt on the 50 here I think looks really realistic. Even like maybe not on camera, but in person it looks like a little miniature Tony Stark, you know, how lifelike the head sculpt looks. I mean, I don't know if you can really tell between him and Simu Liu there, right there with Shang-Chi next to him. I think the Iron Man looks a lot more realistic. And yeah, just nice little corner piece over here. You got like his battle damage mask and the sword down on the base, Infinity War base. Yeah, so now hopefully this will be the first of many figures for my Infinity War collection. I think I only have Bucky right there is the only other Infinity War figure I have, which just seems criminal. So now I'm on a mission to get more Infinity War figures. So comment below, which Infinity War figure should I unbox next? And it's probably obvious. I should probably go get me a Thanos from Infinity War or Endgame. But I did really enjoy this Iron Man figure unboxing, so I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on this, or you can send them to me on my other social medias. But I'd also like to hear, who would you like to see me unbox next? And also there will be a 100th figure collection tour video coming very soon. This is figure 97 and 98 this weekend, so stay tuned for tomorrow if you want to see Pepper Potts Rescue Mark 49 suit unboxing. That's a really cool one, and I love that little accessory she comes with on the front there. And yeah, only if she came with a full Pepper Potts head sculpt, but that worked for me, that little flip up mask, kind of like this one over here for Tony. But that's it for me, y'all. I really appreciate anybody that made it this far into the video, and if you would like to support the channel further, the best way of doing that is dropping a like on this video, subscribing if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss future Hot Toys figure unboxings every weekend all through 2026. So stay tuned for more, y'all, and I will see you gorgeous folks in tomorrow's video. Peace.